Your calls on whether we should stop locking up kids. A Guardian investigation has found that a record number of vulnerable children are being jailed. But the key thing is this: they're being jailed many miles from their families, and charities are warning that will increase the likelihood of them just giving up hope and reoffending. More than 1 in 10 of those young people in custody in England are being held at least 75 miles from their families, the highest since the Ministry of Justice began publishing the figures in April 2015. Earlier this year, Scotland transferred all of its under-18s out of young offender institutions and into more so-called child-friendly settings. And there are calls for the Labour government to do the same in England. Is that something Keir Starmer should do, Suzy?
Look, I mean, I've actually worked for many years with young people that are at risk of crime or, have got involved in crime. Now, ultimately, look, young people that commit crime, you can't just, you're not saying let's leave them out on the streets. What they're talking about here is replacing the current system, which clearly doesn't work because of the offending rates, with more secure homes. This thing about, them being placed miles away from their families, I mean, there's no way that can be a good thing, because what it means
is... What's the punishment? Yes,
and look, it's absolutely right. There has to be punishment and there has to be consequences. But what we're saying here is our current prison system is creating better criminals, not better citizens.
Is that right?
It's not working.
Is that right? Do you think that's true? Because if that's true, Carole, yeah, the reoffending rates, Carole, are horrible.
That's because there are no consequences to violent crime. Look, there are... Admit it or not, the fact is that we have young people, kids under 18, who rape, stab and kill people. There was a case in June this year of two 12-year-olds stabbing a guy called Sean Seahigh, and they killed him. Now, what are you saying? These people shouldn't be locked up? Of course they should. The sad fact is we have this happen. We have... look through the last 10 years of the amount of children who've killed children who've killed adults. And I'm not talking about teenagers, I'm talking about kids. So we have to have a secure place for those kids. We have knife crime. I saw a film on Twitter 2 nights ago where there's a gang of teens, 14, 15-year-olds, wandering around a major train station, slashing with machetes at people. You can't have those people wandering around in an open youth offenders unit. You can't.
We saw also there was a stabbing.
They have to be punished.
The stabbing on a bus. We can't go into details.
That was yesterday.
London yesterday.
Yes.
And it was a fatal stabbing.
Yes.
It may well have been by teenagers. That's the
and,
word. I don't know. So, Suzy, a clear divide here, because Carole really thinks that at the moment, this is all about altering the consequences for crime and making it less consequential.
No, I don't think that's true. Look, ultimately, where there are serious offenders like that, ultimately, it is important that there are... Absolutely right, that there are consequences.
But isn't it always serious when people get locked up?
What we are talking about here is something is going wrong in this country because the reoffending rates are ridiculous. We're talking, it's something like 90%. If you commit crime, you go into a youth offending. So the point is what we want to look at is actually, can these kids be rehabilitated? Now, there are extreme examples, and look, and they're the extreme examples, but there's a massive percentage of these kids that come, we're talking extreme vulnerable backgrounds, broken homes.
And what we're saying,
Suzy, we say you're on the scrap heap for the rest of your life?
You don't get sent down.
Are we going to say that we can rehabilitate them?
OK, Carole.
You don't get sent to a youth offenders unit or to youth prison if you haven't done something pretty damn serious. And forgive me if I don't care if they're 75 miles away from their parents, if they've hurt someone, or if they've stabbed someone, or if they've robbed someone. I don't care. And the bottom line, and you must know this having worked with kids, many child criminals are the victims of bad parenting. So the bottom line is it doesn't matter whether they're near their parents or not. So, but forgive me if I care about the victims of these people and not these people themselves. If you've stabbed someone, I don't care where they put you.
Yeah, but you care when they come out. That's the key. I agree. Yeah, OK, if we're just going to throw people down wells or something, and you don't have to see them again, you could argue that. But actually, they're going to come out.
But Suzy's talking about no punishment. There has to be a punishment and then rehabilitation. We've got to have both, because kids now, if you're carrying a machete around and you get sent to a nice little cosy school where you have a lovely life, probably better than you have at home, where's the deterrent for you not to go back on the street?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that, at the moment, I think it's Feltenham was said to be one of the most violent prisons in the country, where kids were saying to their parents, don't come visit me because I fear for your security.
Right.
You can't have that. Look, the point is yes, and I've worked with kids like this. There are, violent offenders. That is a certain category. What we're talking about is there is a massive percentage that are going into prison, and and they're being more criminalised in prison, coming out worse, and then reoffending. That's not good. That's not
What's
good for
the
anyone.
answer? What would
so
you
the answer
do?
is, what's fascinating is you've got the Oasis Trust. I was just looking into this. Is the first secure school, and they're talking about we're going to try something different. So the Oasis Trust talking about, you know, helping to rehabilitate these kids, you know, apprenticeships, training. Because let's just say, you know, when you're really young, you make a mistake, but do we write those kids off for life? And the point is,
But have
no,
you seen the
you can't
figures
write
for
them off life.
rehabilitation, Suzy? Have you seen the rehabilitation figures, both for offenders and for adults? Rehabilitation doesn't work. You know, and if you
Because of the way we're doing
the kind of institution you're talking about would take time, money, massive amounts of staff. It's not going to happen under this government or
And do you know what's
anyone else. They
fascinating? I
don't
just
do
want
it.
to say, do you know how much it costs? How much does it cost
more than
to our government?
going
You know,
to Eton.
how much does it cost? No, what I'm saying is, how much does it cost when you do not invest in
But isn't it,
rehabilitating
I always think
their
with these so-called recidivism, i.e. reoffending, part of the reason for that is we lock people up really late. So you classically will have done, on average, 40 burglaries before you go to jail. You won't have been caught for all of them.
Yeah.
But so of course by 40 you're going to do 41. Doesn't matter when you come out.
I just
That's
wanna
why
say-
the reoffending thing looks so bad. So the later you lock people up, the more reoffending you get.
Yeah, but look, there has to be deterrent. There has to be. Look, I've been a victim of crime many times in my life.
we all
My days.
have.
Yes, he's absolutely right. There's got to be deterrent. There's got to be punishment. What
there
we're
isn't.
talking about here is something is clearly going wrong because people are coming out, and it's like 90%. The rates are ridiculous.
Yes, they are ridiculous. Okay, let's get a Reece in Paris. Hi, Reece. Sorry for keeping you holding on. How are you doing?
Yes, hello, Jeremy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on your show.
Pleasure. Hang on
The
in there, mate.
problem, one of the problems with this is there's no financial consequences to people who carry knives or commit offences with them. There's the criminal side of things, but no financial consequence. My idea is that there should be better stop and search facilities and better ways of dealing with that. And any person found carrying a weapon like that on the street should be immediately issued with a fine of £1,000. If that fine is given to a child or young person under the age of 18, it's payable by the parents. And if they're over 18, it's paid for by themselves, either from, if they're on benefits, from reduction in that, or from attachment of earnings otherwise. Point about this is it means that parents will take far more care about ensuring that the children have no access
Carole says
to
that
weapons.
why are you saying that?
I know it seems like a good idea, but you know, I used to report. I used to be a criminal reporter, so I did a lot of court cases. And all you have to do when you get to court, they fine you at £1,000. You say, "I can't afford to pay it. I haven't got a job. I can pay you £1 a week," and that's what happens. So there's no real consequence.
Or you just have it like a student loan where you've got the
Well,
debt
that's
for the
not
rest of
quite
your life.
Not quite the.
Go on, Reece.
If you haven't got it, you can't pay it.
You've got to pipe up.
Okay. The fact of the matter is that it does two things. One is it should help parents to control children. These children, largely that commit these offences, sadly are out of control. And by what the fine levied on the parents means that they will take greater care of that and attempt to stop it. Secondly, the child, the young person, whatever they are, also bears the consequences of the offence that they've got. And there is no question about it. The issue with looks like a parking fine. £1,000 right there, right then. No going to court or anything else.
Listen, I hear you. I sort of think it sounds good on paper. It might, if the parents are violent to the kid, which is why the kid's violent to other people, and the kid comes home and says, "I've got you £1,000 fine." I would slightly fear for his safety. I don't want to be too...
One, you'd fear for the child's safety, and two, the parent, the kind of parent who breeds that kind of child, is actually not going to pay. They'll stick two fingers up at authority and say,
disordered living. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that the comment about the use of stop and search, I think that's really important. I think that the point here is we either continue as we are, which is, as I say, kids offend, they go into prison, and it's like they're 90% likely to then go back again, or we say, no, we're going to stop that cycle. And there are some people's lives you're never going to turn
You're
around.
not saying
And there's
how.
a whole percentage.
You're not saying how.
The point is at the moment, they're going in and these places...
Yes, we know that.
There's crime... No, so how we're going to do it is...
What do you do different?
Well, what the Oasis Trust are talking about, which I think is fascinating, but also kind of not rocket science, but we've just not been doing it, is making sure that kids go in and they're going to do entry-level qualifications, they might do T-levels, GCSEs, so the point is they're going to get a proper education, but also the therapeutic care. I've worked with these kids. Sometimes if they've come from, just broken homes and what they've experienced themselves, abuse, what hope do they have if they don't get that support?
OK, Stephen West Glamorgan, you've also worked with kids who commit offences, have you?
Yes, I have indeed, yes. And unfortunately, the lady in the blue is talking a bit of hot air, really. The school in the institution, the children are running amok. Staff are getting battered, for want of a better word. I've seen assaults on a daily basis, broken noses, broken cheekbones, broken jaws. There are no consequences. Carole is quite correct. We need a tougher... We're not even allowed to use the word punishment. It has to be a consequence.
So
and we're teaching these...
You're talking about a school within an institution for young offenders?
Yes, within a young offenders institution.
Offending within the school. Oh, my Lord.
That's the point. No, sorry, but that's the point. You're not actually disagreeing with me. I'm saying to you, what you've just said is that it's not working. Do you want that to continue?
But he's described the model you want.
No, he's not.
He's got people being educated in there.
No, that is what's been going on at the moment. And the point is that hasn't been working. This hasn't even started yet. So you can't be criticising this. This is a brand new model and a way of doing it where it's absolutely right.
We need to try it, Carole. We've got to try getting people around a campfire with acoustic guitars or something.
Well, and that's the point. You stab somebody and the punishment for that is you're around a fire playing an electric guitar. And what Suzy's describing is what would happen in an ideal world. This is not an ideal world. And Steve in West Glamorgan is spot on when he said he's working among it now. He sees the reality of what we have.
OK, Steve, thank you. Really interesting. Linda in Kent, how are you, Linda?
I'm very well, Jeremy. And yourself?
I think it might be your first call of the year.
I think it is, Jeremy,
All
yes.
right. All right. What would you like to say on this subject?
Well, I just think I'm fed up with hearing these people being called children. Yeah. I think once they pass 14, 15, they're young adults, not children. I was at work when I was 15 years old and only just 15. And I would have been most insulted if they'd have called me a child.
Good point.
They're not
also,
children.
I always think the key crime that I go back to is the Bulger, killing of Jamie
Completely.
Bulger. Were they 11 or 12, those two lads?
I covered that trial. They were 11 when they did it.
There might have been 10, apparently. So it might be Venables and Thompson,
and the little boy was 2. And this is the thing. And,
But hang on, Linda hasn't done her thing yet. So I'm so sorry, Carole.
Sorry, Linda.
Go on, Linda. I cut you off, sorry.
Carole can cut me off any time. She's wonderful.
Sorry. Don't say that.
I'm sorry, but you were talking about them being separated from their families. Yeah. Well, in my very limited... I haven't got the experience of the gentleman you just had on. I worked in a school for many years in different capacities, not as a teacher, but I looked at some of the children who misbehaved and were quite naughty, if you're allowed to use that word anymore, and... To be perfectly honest, most of them would have been better off away from their families. Well, so I'd put 150 miles between them. They might be better off.
I hadn't even thought of that.
I just want to say, sorry, I think there's look, absolutely, I wouldn't even that example of Jamie Bulger. I mean, those kind of violent crimes. Absolutely, those kids need to be locked up.
They were 10, but it shows you could be a criminal. You could be a criminal at 10.
I just want to say something. That is not what I'm talking about. I absolutely agree with you. Is it Linda? I completely agree with you. You've got to deal with that. In absolutely, those kids should have been locked up, or young adults, whatever you want to call them. I'm talking about there is a percentage of kids in this country where they commit a much more minor crime than that. We're locking them away.
What do you call a minor crime? Because you don't get sent. But you're saying the same thing all the time.
Carole,
the thing is,
what
what
about-
you
do you
don't
want us to continue
You don't.
as we are?
No, you don't
Exactly.
get. You don't get
The
put
point
away
is-
And
for
let
a
Carole-
minor
let
crime.
Carole speak. Go
You
on.
don't get put away for a minor crime.
Well, let's say your 20th shoplifting
you
offence.
And what happens is with people who commit ever more serious offences, and that's what's happened with a lot of young kids now, they don't get sent away the first time they do something bad, or the second or the third. They have to commit 20, 25, 30 serious offences before they get
Okay.
locked up.
Later-
They've had
That's a
every
classic
chance in the
example,
world
though,
to
isn't
get
it?
better.
Shoplifting offence or whatever, like a theft. Now look,
No,
I'm
not
not
one,
saying,
not
but-
one,
Yeah, or
20.
20.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. But the point is, do we want it to happen that they come out and then, like, within,
You're
a
just not
year,
giving a
they just commit
solution,
crime
though.
again?
Right.
You're not
Right,
giving
we
a
need to- we
solution
need to
that
move on,
involves
guys.
punishment.
We don't
Yeah,
want,
yeah.
we don't want kids
to come out
go
and
into these
reoffend
places
and reoffend.
and they're further brutalised.
We've got it, okay.
You know, or they're getting involved.
And what
in
about the
prison.
victims
We
of all
want
the
to
crimes?
rehabilitate.
Thank
That's
you.
who
It's
I
the
care
papers
about.
and everything else in a moment.